Nira stood outside the Vexian shipping company for the third time that week. Her legs hurt from standing all day. Her stomach hurt from not eating. The blue markings on her face glowed faintly in the dim light of Valara Station. Those markings told everyone what she was: a Quelar, a refugee, someone nobody wanted. She took a deep breath and walked through the automatic doors. The Vexian manager looked up from his desk. His 4 eyes narrowed when he saw her face. "Position filled," he said before she could speak. "But the sign outside says you're hiring," Nira replied softly. "Not anymore." The manager turned back to his computer screen. Nira left without another word. She had learned not to argue. It never helped. The employment district of Valara Station stretched for 3 levels. Hundreds of businesses operated here. Restaurants needed cooks. Tech companies needed programmers. Shipping firms needed pilots. But none of them needed a Quelar woman. Nira checked her data pad. She had contacted 47 companies in 5 days. 0 responses. The few who agreed to meet her changed their minds when they saw her in person. The blue facial markings gave her away every time. She walked to the Trollean restaurant next. The owner was serving customers when she entered. He was a large creature with thick arms and a booming voice. He smiled at his customers. When he saw Nira waiting, the smile disappeared. "We don't hire your kind here," he said loudly. Several customers turned to look. "I'm a certified food preparation specialist," Nira said. "I have 10 years of experience." I said no. The Trollean crossed his arms. "Leave before you scare away my customers." Nira felt her face grow hot. She turned and left quickly. Behind her, she heard the Trollean mutter something about war criminals. Her hand shook as she walked away. The war. Everyone blamed the Quelar for the war. Her people had started it. They had been arrogant and cruel. They had lost badly. Now Quelar refugees scattered across the galaxy were paying the price. Every Quelar was assumed to be guilty. Every Quelar was unwanted. Nira found a bench in the central plaza and sat down. She pulled out her data pad and checked her credits. 42 credits left. A meal cost 15 credits. Her shelter bed cost 10 credits per night. She had enough for maybe 4 more days. Then what? She watched other aliens walk past. A Keswick family laughed together. A group of Vexian businessmen discussed a deal. A human couple held hands as they window shopped. Everyone had somewhere to go. Everyone had purpose. Nira had been an engineer back home. She had designed quantum processors for civilian ships. She had been good at her job. She had a small apartment and friends and a life. Then the war happened. Then everything fell apart. She didn't fight in the war. Most Quelar didn't, but it didn't matter. When their military lost, when their government collapsed, all Quelar became targets. She escaped on a refugee ship with hundreds of others. They scattered to different stations and planets. Most found the same thing she did. Closed doors, hard stairs, no work. The refugee shelter where she stayed had a 3-week limit. She was on day 18. In 3 days, they would make her leave to make room for newer arrivals. Where would she go then? The lower levels of the station were dangerous. People disappeared down there. Nira looked across the plaza. Most of the shops were familiar now. She had tried them all. But there was one small shop she hadn't visited. It sat in a corner, easy to miss. The sign was faded and old. Jiho's Electronics and Repair. She had avoided it because it was human-run. Humans were new to the galaxy. Only 15 years since they discovered faster-than-light travel. Most species considered them primitive. Their technology was basic. Their culture was strange. Nira had never even spoken to a human before, but she was out of options. Nira stood up slowly. Her legs protested. When had she last eaten? 2 days ago? 3? She couldn't remember. She walked across the plaza, each step feeling heavier than the last. The shop door chimed softly when she entered. Inside it was warm and cluttered. Tools lay everywhere. Half-finished repair projects covered 3 workbenches. The smell of solder and electrical components filled the air. It reminded Nira of her old workshop. The memory hurt. A man stood with his back to her, bent over a communications array. He had gray hair and wore a simple work shirt. He didn't turn around immediately. "Be with you in a moment," he said. His voice was kind. Tired but kind, Nira waited. She prepared herself for the usual rejection. She practiced keeping her face neutral when he said no. She wouldn't cry, not here, not in front of a stranger. The man finished whatever he was doing and turned around. He was middle-aged with warm brown eyes and grease on his hands. He looked at Nira's face, at her blue markings, at her worn clothes. She waited for his expression to change, for the kindness to disappear. Instead, he simply smiled. "Can I help you?" Nira's prepared speech tumbled out in a rush. "My name is Nira. I'm a certified quantum processor technician with 10 years of experience. I have degrees in advanced electronics and ship systems. I can work for minimum wage. I can work any hours. I learn fast and I work hard and I just need a chance. Please, I just need—" Her voice cracked. She stopped talking. She was begging. She hated it. But what choice did she have? The human man looked at her quietly for a long moment. Then he asked a question no one else had asked. "Are you hungry?" Nira blinked. "What? When did you last eat?" The man wiped his hands on a cloth. "You look like you're about to fall over." 2 days ago. Maybe 3. I don't—" Nira felt dizzy suddenly. The room tilted slightly. The man moved quickly. He pulled out a chair. "Sit down before you collapse." "Hana," he called toward a back room. "We need another bowl." "What's happening?" Nira sat because her legs wouldn't hold her anymore. "Lunch is happening," the man said. "I'm Jiho, by the way. That shop sign out front? That's me. And we can talk about work after you eat something. Deal?" A woman emerged from the back room. She was younger than Jiho, with kind eyes like his. She looked at Nira and didn't flinch. Didn't stare. She just nodded. "Set another place, Hana. Our guest looks ready to faint." Nira sat in the chair, confused and exhausted and so hungry she felt sick. The human man, Jiho, was getting her food. He didn't say no. He didn't ask her to leave. He asked if she was hungry. For the first time in 5 days, Nira felt something other than despair. She didn't know what it was yet, but it felt almost like hope. The back room was small and cluttered with spare parts and tools, but in the center sat a small table with 3 chairs. Hana placed a bowl in front of Nira. Steam rose from rice and vegetables in a rich-smelling broth. Nira's hands shook as she picked up the spoon. "Eat slowly," Hana said gently. "You'll make yourself sick if you eat too fast." Nira tried to follow the advice. But the food was warm and delicious, and she was so hungry. She finished the bowl in minutes. Hana quietly refilled it without comment. Jiho sat across from her, eating his own lunch, not staring at her desperate hunger. When Nira finally felt full, she set down her spoon. Shame washed over her. She had come looking for work and ended up begging for food instead. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I'll pay you back. Once I find work, I'll—" "No need," Jiho interrupted. "Now let's talk about your situation. You said you're a quantum processor technician?" Nira nodded. "I design them for civilian ships. Small vessels mostly. Personal transports and cargo runners. I can repair any quantum-based system. Navigation, communications, power distribution." Jiho leaned back in his chair. "I'll be honest with you, Nira. I can't hire you officially. This shop barely makes enough to support me and Hana. Some months we struggle to pay the rent." Nira's hope crumbled. Of course, she had been stupid to think. "But," Jiho continued, "I can offer you something else. An apprenticeship. You teach me about Quilar quantum technology. I teach you how humans repair things. You get meals and a place to sleep in the storage room. It's not much, but it's warm and safe. When you've learned enough human techniques and saved some money, you can move on to something better." Nira stared at him. "You would do that? For me? Why not?" Jiho shrugged. "You need help. I need to learn new techniques. Seems fair to me. But I'm Quilar. Everyone hates—" "I don't care what species you are," Jiho said firmly. "Can you fix things?" "Yes. Do you work hard?" "Yes." "Then we have a deal." Jiho extended his hand in the human gesture of agreement. Nira reached out slowly and shook his hand. Her vision blurred with tears. "Thank you," she whispered. Hana smiled. "I'll show you the storage room. We can set up a cot for you." The storage room was small but clean. Shelves lined the walls filled with parts and supplies. Hana cleared a corner and brought in a folding cot and blankets. It was the first real bed Nira would sleep in since arriving at the station. The refugee shelter only had hard benches. "Bathroom is down the hall," Hana said. "You can shower any time. I'll bring you some clean clothes. You're taller than me, but we'll make it work." Nira couldn't speak. She just nodded. That afternoon, Jiho brought her to the main workshop. He showed her his current project, a communication system from a small freighter. The owner complained it kept losing signal. I've replaced 3 components already, Jiho explained. But the problem keeps coming back. What do you see? Nira examined the system. Within minutes, she identified the issue. The quantum resonator is misaligned, see here? The frequency drift is 0.03 above standard. It's small enough that most diagnostics miss it. But over time, it compounds. Can you fix it? Easily. Nira adjusted the resonator with practiced hands. But this model has a design flaw. The alignment will drift again in 6 months. If you add a stabilizer here and reroute this connection, it won't happen again. Jiho watched closely. That's brilliant. But that's not in the repair manual. No, Nira agreed. But it works better than the original design. Jiho grinned. I like how you think. Now let me show you something. He pulled out a damaged power regulator. Human trick. The official repair requires replacing the entire unit. Costs 500 credits. But if you bypass this circuit and add a simple resistor here, you can fix it for 10 credits. Not as pretty, but it works just as well. Nira frowned. That's not standard procedure. Nope. But it saves the customer money. And it works. That's what matters. Over the following weeks, Nira learned that humans approached technology differently than Quilar. Quilar engineers followed exact protocols. Every repair had specific steps. Deviation was discouraged. Precision and conformity were valued above all. Humans improvised. They experimented. They made things work with whatever materials they had available. Jiho called it tinkering. The concept was foreign to Nira, but she found herself fascinated by it. She taught Jiho about quantum systems. He taught her about creative problem solving. Together, they started completing repairs faster and better than before. Customers noticed a Keswick ship captain brought in a damaged navigation computer. 3 shops said it was unfixable, she explained. They want me to buy a whole new system. Nira examined it while Jiho looked over her shoulder. The quantum core was burned out. Standard procedure said replace the entire unit. But Nira remembered one of Jiho's lessons about creative solutions. What if we use a dual-core setup? She suggested. Take 2 smaller quantum processors and link them. It won't be as elegant, but it'll work, Jiho finished, and cost half as much as a new system. Let's do it. They completed the repair in 2 days. The Keswick captain tested her navigation thoroughly and then smiled. This actually works better than my old system. How much do I owe you? Jiho quoted a fair price. The captain paid and then said, I'm telling my friends about you too. This kind of work is rare. Word spread slowly at first, then faster. More customers arrived. Some were surprised to see a Quilar working in the shop. A few left immediately, but most stayed. Nira's diagnostic skills combined with Jiho's creative solutions produced results other repair shops couldn't match. 3 weeks after Nira started, Hana showed her the shop's earnings. We made twice our usual income this month. Because of you. Nira felt pride for the first time in months. She was useful again. She had purpose, but not everyone was happy about their success. Taiho ran a large repair franchise 3 levels above Jiho's shop. He had expensive equipment and a dozen employees. He charged premium prices and had steady business from wealthy clients. But lately, some of those clients were going to Jiho instead. Taiho visited the shop one morning. He was a middle-aged human with an expensive suit and an angry expression. I want to talk about your employee, he said to Jiho. Nira's my apprentice, Jiho corrected. She's an unregistered refugee. You're violating labor codes. Taiho's voice was cold. I've filed all the proper paperwork, Jiho replied calmly. Cultural exchange apprenticeship. Completely legal. We'll see about that. Taiho turned and left. 2 days later, station security arrived. The officer in charge was Commander Siwoo, a stern human woman with military bearing. She examined Jiho's paperwork carefully while Nira stood nearby, ready to run if needed. This is filed correctly, Siwoo said finally. Cultural exchange provisions are clear. She turned to Nira. Are you being exploited? Forced to work against your will? No, Nira answered honestly. I'm being given a chance. Siwoo studied her for a moment, then nodded. She stamped the approval on her datapad. Everything is in order here. And Taiho? She looked at the franchise owner who had followed security to watch. If you file another frivolous complaint, I'll cite you for harassment. Understood? Taiho left without a word, but his expression promised this wasn't over. That night, Nira sat in her small room thinking about everything that had changed. A month ago, she was desperate and starving. Now she had work, food, a place to sleep, and something she hadn't expected. Friends Jiho and Hana treated her like family. They shared meals. They laughed together. They taught her about human culture and listened when she talked about Keelar traditions. They saw her as a person, not just her species. For the first time since the war ended, Nira felt like she belonged somewhere. 2 months after Nira started working at Jiho's shop, a young Keelar man appeared at the door. His facial markings were dim with stress and hunger. Nira recognized the look. She had worn it herself not long ago. "I heard a Keelar works here," the young man said nervously. "Is it true? Did someone actually hire you?" Nira glanced at Jiho, who nodded encouragement. "I'm an apprentice here." "Come in. Have you eaten today?" The young man's name was Ryan. He had been searching for work for 6 weeks. Like Nira, he found only closed doors and hostile faces. Over a bowl of Hana's soup, he told his story. It was painfully familiar. "I wish I could hire you," Jiho said honestly, "but I still can barely afford to keep this place running." Ryan nodded, defeated. "I understand. Thank you for the meal." After he left, Nira couldn't stop thinking about him, about all the other Keelar refugees struggling like she had been. That evening, she approached Jiho with an idea. "What if we taught them?" she suggested. "Not hiring, but training. The way you trained me. Show them how to combine their skills with human techniques." Jiho considered this. "A workshop? Free training sessions?" "On weekends," Nira added. "When the shop is closed anyway. We could teach basic repair skills, human innovation methods, whatever might help them find work." Hana smiled. "I like it. We could use the workshop space." The first workshop happened the following weekend. Nira had spread word through the refugee shelter. 7 people showed up, 5 Keelar, 1 Trollian, and 1 Keswick. All refugees, all desperate for any advantage in their job search. Jiho taught them basic human repair philosophy. "Don't just follow the manual," he explained. "Think about what the device is supposed to do. Then figure out the simplest way to make it do that. Sometimes the official method isn't the best method." Nira demonstrated quantum diagnostics, showing them tricks she had learned in her years as an engineer. The students were hungry for knowledge. They asked questions. They practiced on broken equipment Jiho had collected. By the end of the day, everyone had successfully repaired something. "Small victories, but important ones. Same time next week?" asked the Trollian, an older female named Maris. "Same time," Jiho confirmed. Word spread through the refugee community faster than Nira expected. The second weekend, 15 people showed up. The third weekend, 23. They came from different species, different backgrounds, but all shared the same struggle. The galaxy didn't want them. They needed new skills to survive. A young human engineer named Yuna heard about the workshops and volunteered to help teach. She worked at a major tech firm but gave up her weekends to assist. "Everyone deserves a chance," she said simply. The workshops became more structured. Jiho taught improvisation and creative problem-solving. Nira taught advanced diagnostics and system integration. Yuna taught modern human technology standards. Students learned to blend different approaches, creating unique skill sets that made them more employable. After a month, success stories started appearing. Rion, the young Keelar man, found work at a small shipping company. The owner had been skeptical, but Ryan's demonstration of his newly learned skills impressed him enough to take a chance. Maris, the Trollian woman, started her own small repair service in the lower levels. 2 Keswick refugees got hired at a manufacturing plant after showing their supervisors new efficiency methods they learned in the workshops. But success brought attention, and not all of it was welcome. The Galactic Merchant Guild noticed that refugee workers with unusual skill combinations were appearing in the job market. These workers charged less than established businesses but produced comparable or better results. The guild's established members didn't like competition. A guild representative visited Jiho's shop on a Tuesday afternoon. He was a Vexian named Korath, dressed in expensive robes and carrying an official datapad. "You're running unlicensed educational programs," Korath stated, "violating commercial training regulations." "We're not charging money," Jiho replied calmly. "It's volunteer community education." "You're creating workers who undercut legitimate businesses," Korath countered. "The guild demands you cease these activities immediately." "Or what?" Nira asked, stepping forward. Korath looked at her with distaste. Or we'll use our influence to have your shop's license revoked. We have connections with station authority. After he left, Jiho sat heavily in his chair. They can actually do it. The guild has power, so we just stop? Nira felt anger rising. Let everyone go back to starving? I didn't say that. Jiho rubbed his face tiredly. But we need help. Official support. That's when Yuna mentioned Hyun. He's a human diplomat assigned to the station. Young guy, kind of idealistic. He's been looking for a project to prove humanity's value in the galactic community. Maybe this is it? Hyun visited the workshop that weekend. He was in his late 20s, energetic and passionate. He watched the training session with growing excitement. This is perfect, he said afterward. This is exactly what humanity should be doing. Helping others, breaking down barriers, proving that cooperation works better than exclusion. The Merchant Guild wants to shut us down, Nira explained. Then I'll fight them, Hyun promised. I'll navigate the bureaucracy, file appeals, make this official. Give me 2 weeks. While Hyun worked through diplomatic channels, the workshops continued. The space grew too small. Borvik, an elderly Trollian merchant who had attended several sessions, offered his warehouse for larger gatherings. Over 50 students started attending regularly. Nira found herself becoming a leader. Students asked her advice on job hunting, on dealing with discrimination, on not giving up hope. She remembered her own desperation and tried to give them what Jiho had given her, a real chance. Then the message arrived. It came through encrypted Quelar channels addressed specifically to Nira. The sender was part of a Quelar military remnant. Bitter survivors who refused to accept their defeat. They were offering passage to a separatist colony. A place where Quelar could live among their own kind, away from other species. Away from the humiliation of working alongside aliens. Join us, the message read. Remember your pride. Remember what we were before the others brought us down. Stop degrading yourself serving humans and other inferior species. Return to your people. The message ended with a warning. Quelar who refused the offer would be considered traitors, enemies of their own species. Nira sat in her small room reading and rereading the message. Part of her ached for Quelar culture, for the familiar comfort of her own language, her own customs, for a place where her blue facial markings meant belonging instead of rejection. But another part of her thought about Jiho sharing his lunch with a starving stranger, Hana treating her like a sister, Yuna volunteering her free time to help refugees, Hyun fighting bureaucracy to protect people he'd never met, students from a dozen species learning together, helping each other. The Quelar separatists offered her pride, but what they called pride looked a lot like the arrogance that had started the war in the first place. The isolation that had led to their defeat, the bitterness that would poison any future they tried to build. Nira made her decision. She deleted the message and went to find Jiho. She had work to do. The workshops were growing. More refugees needed help, and she had finally found something worth more than pride. She had found purpose. The next day, Hyun returned with news. I've filed official paperwork with the Galactic Council. The workshops are now registered as a cultural exchange and education program. The Merchant Guild can complain, but they can't shut you down without council approval, and I'll make sure they never get it. But he also brought a warning. The guild is powerful. They'll find other ways to cause problems. And those Quelar separatists you mentioned, I've heard rumors they're planning something. Be careful, Nira nodded. She had already chosen her side. Whatever came next, she would face it with the community she had helped build. With the friends who had given her a chance when no one else would. She looked around the crowded warehouse at students of different species working together, learning from each other. This was what the galaxy could be, should be, and she would fight to protect it. The pressure from the Galactic Merchant Guild intensified over the following weeks. They couldn't shut down the workshops directly, but they found other ways to create problems. Suppliers who sold parts to Jiho suddenly raised their prices. A health inspector showed up 3 times in 1 week, searching for violations he never found. Rumors spread that the workshops were teaching dangerous, unapproved techniques. Through it all, the workshops continued. Attendance kept growing. Success stories multiplied. A Quelar woman named Sarah found work at a communications company. A Keswick father and son started their own small business. Even some non-refugees started attending, curious about the innovative teaching methods. Taiho, The franchise owner who had tried to shut them down before watched this success with growing frustration. His premium repair service was losing customers to workshop graduates who charged fair prices and did excellent work. His profits were shrinking, but then something unexpected happened. Tejo showed up at the workshop one Saturday morning. Everyone tensed when he entered. This was the man who had called station security on them, who had tried to destroy their community. "I want to talk to Jiho and Nira," Tejo said, privately. They met in Borvik's small office at the back of the warehouse. Tejo looked uncomfortable, like he was struggling with himself. "I've been watching what you're doing here," he began. "At first I was angry. You were taking my customers, undercutting my prices. I thought you were destroying my business." "We're just helping people find work," Nira said carefully. "I know." Tejo sighed. "I watched your testimony to the guild last month. The recording went viral across the station's networks. You were right. About jobs not being finite. About lifting people up instead of keeping them down." Jiho waited silently. "I want to propose a partnership," Tejo continued. "My franchise connections, your innovation, Nira's expertise. Together we could create something bigger, a truly multi-species enterprise. We could hire workshop graduates, expand to other stations, show the galaxy that cooperation works better than competition." Nira was stunned. "You're serious?" "Dead serious. I've been in this business for 20 years. I've made good money, but I've also kept people down to protect my profits. Your workshop made me see that differently." Tejo pulled out a datapad. "Here's my proposal. Equal partnership, shared decision-making, priority hiring for workshop graduates." Jiho read through the proposal carefully. "This is actually very fair." "I'm tired of being the villain in this story," Tejo admitted. "I want to be part of the solution instead." They were still discussing details when Hyun burst into the office. His face was pale. "We have a problem. A big one. The Quilar separatists are here, on the station, and they're looking for Nira." The color drained from Nira's face. "How many?" "At least a dozen. Armed. They landed an hour ago and went straight to the refugee district." Hyun was breathing hard. "They're asking questions, demanding to know where the traitors are." "We should call station security," Jiho said immediately. "Already done. Commander Siwoo is assembling a response team. But Nira, they specifically mentioned you by name. They came here for you." Nira felt cold fear settle in her stomach. She knew what the separatists wanted. Quilar, who refused to join their colony, were considered enemies. They had come to take her by force. "I won't let that happen," Jiho said firmly. "Neither will I," added Tejo, surprising everyone. "I may have been wrong about a lot of things, but I know right from wrong. They're not taking anyone from this station." Yuna ran into the office. "They're coming here." Someone told them about the workshops. "They're heading this way right now." "Get everyone to safety," Nira ordered. "The students, get them out of here." "No." The voice came from Borvik, the old Trollian merchant. He stood in the doorway with several workshop students behind him. "We're not running. This is our community too." "They're armed," Nira protested. "They're dangerous." "So are we," said Rian, the young Kilar man who had been one of her first students. "We're dangerous because we represent change. We're dangerous because we prove their way is wrong." More students gathered. Quilar, Trollian, Keswick, Vexian, human, dozens of them. All standing together, the warehouse doors burst open. 12 Quilar separatists entered, wearing military-style uniforms and carrying energy weapons. Their leader was a tall woman with hard eyes and facial markings that glowed bright with anger. "We're here for the traitors," she announced. "Any Quilar who has degraded themselves by serving inferior species. You have one chance to come willingly." Nira stepped forward. Her legs were shaking, but she kept her voice steady. "I'm not going anywhere with you. You don't have a choice." The leader gestured to her companions. "Grab her." 2 separatists moved toward Nira. Then Jiho stepped in front of her. "She stays," he said simply. "Move aside, human. This doesn't concern your species. She's my friend. That makes it my concern." Then Hana stood beside her brother. Then Yuna, then Borvik. Then Ryan and Maris and Sarah and all the other students. Human, Quilar, Trollian, Keswick. They formed a living wall between Nira and the separatists. The leader looked shocked. "You would protect a Quilar? Our people destroyed civilian ships. We killed thousands in the war. Why would you defend one of us?" "Because the war is over," Jiho replied. And because she's not responsible for what others did. She's just a person trying to build a better life. That's something worth protecting. You're fools, all of you. The leader raised her weapon.
Step aside or what?
Commander Siwoo's voice rang out from the warehouse entrance. She stood with 20 station security officers all armed and ready. You're going to start a firefight in a civilian area? On a neutral station? The separatists turned, realizing they were surrounded. Security blocked the exits. Workshop students blocked their path to Nira. They were trapped. Lower your weapons, Siwoo ordered. You're under arrest for attempted kidnapping and illegal weapons possession. The leader's grip tightened on her weapon. For a moment, violence seemed inevitable. Then one of the younger separatists, a woman barely out of her teens, lowered her weapon. I'm done, she said quietly. I'm done with the anger and the hate and the fighting. We lost the war. Maybe it's time we started losing the bitterness too. 2 others lowered their weapons. Then 2 more. The leader looked around at her fragmenting team and finally lowered her own weapon in defeat. As security arrested the separatists, Siwoo approached the group of students still standing protectively around Nira. That was either very brave or very stupid, the commander said. They could have opened fire. They could have, Jiho agreed. But we couldn't just let them take her. That wouldn't have been right. Siwoo studied the diverse group of people who had stood together. No, I suppose it wouldn't have been. After the separatists were led away, the warehouse slowly emptied. Students headed home, shaken but safe. Taeho stayed behind with Jiho, Nira, and Hana. I meant what I said about the partnership, Taeho said. After seeing what this community has become, I want to be part of building it, not tearing it down. Jiho extended his hand. Partners, then. They shook on it. Later that night, Nira stood outside the warehouse looking up at the artificial sky of Valara Station. Hyun found her there. The 3 separatists who lowered their weapons first, he said. They asked to stay on the station, said they wanted to join the workshops, learn a different way. Will Siwoo allow it? She's considering it. She wants to give them a chance. Like Jiho gave you, Nira smiled. Chances seem to be contagious around here. That's the best kind of contagion, Hyun replied. He pulled out his data pad. I have news. The Galactic Council reviewed everything. The workshops, the testimonies, the incident today. They're creating a new refugee employment initiative, modeled directly on what you've built here. It'll spread to other stations. Really? Really. Humanity's been in space for 15 years and we're already changing how the galaxy works. Not through force. Through compassion. Hyun grinned. I'd say that's pretty impressive. Nira thought about that young, desperate woman who had walked into Jiho's shop months ago. Starving, hopeless, ready to give up. She thought about everything that had changed since then. Yes, she agreed. That's pretty impressive. 3 months after the confrontation with the separatists, Valara Station looked different to Nira. Or maybe she looked at it differently now. The same corridors that once represented only rejection now felt like home. The partnership with Taeho had transformed their small operation into something bigger. The combined business operated from Taeho's larger facility, but kept Jiho's original shop as a training center. They employed 15 people now. A mix of species, most of them former workshop students. Sarah, the Quilar woman who had found work at the communications company, was now their lead technician. Ryan managed the parts inventory. Maris ran quality control. The business thrived because it proved what Nira had argued before the Merchant Guild. Diversity created strength, not weakness. The workshops continued every weekend, now officially sponsored by the Galactic Council's new refugee initiative. Hyun had successfully navigated the bureaucratic maze, turning their grassroots effort into a recognized program. Other stations started implementing similar workshops. The change was slow, but it was real. On a Saturday morning, Nira stood in the training center watching the latest group of students. 40 people filled the space, refugees from 8 different species, all learning that their skills and determination mattered more than their origins. Jiho was teaching his usual class on creative problem solving. He held up a broken communication device. The manual says you need to replace the entire circuit board, he explained. Costs 200 credits and takes 3 days to get the part. But what if you don't have that time or money? What if your customer needs their communicator working today? He demonstrated bypassing the damaged section and rerouting the signal through a secondary circuit. Simple, elegant, effective. The galaxy often tells us there's only one right way to do things, Jiho said, looking around at the diverse students. But there are always multiple solutions. The trick is being brave enough to try them. After class, a young Keswick woman approached Nira nervously. Her name was Tola, and she had arrived on the station 2 weeks ago. I heard about you, Tola said quietly, about how you came here with nothing, how no one would hire you, how the humans gave you a chance. That's true, Nira confirmed. I've been trying to find work for 10 days. Everyone says no. I'm starting to lose hope. Tola's voice cracked. Does it get better? Nira remembered standing in this exact emotional place. The despair. The hunger. The feeling that the galaxy had no room for people like her. It gets better, Nira promised. But you have to keep trying. Keep learning. Keep believing that you have value even when others don't see it yet. She pulled out a data pad. Here. These are 5 businesses that have hired workshop graduates before. They're more open-minded. Try them first. Tola took the data pad gratefully. Thank you. After she left, Hana brought Nira a cup of tea. They sat together, watching the students practice repairs on donated equipment. You've changed, Hana observed. When you first came here, you couldn't even look people in the eye. Now you're mentoring dozens of students. I had good teachers, Nira replied, smiling at her friend. The business communicator on Nira's belt chimed. It was Commander Siwu. Can you come to security headquarters? There's something you should see. Nira arrived to find Siwu in her office with 3 of the former separatists, the young woman who had lowered her weapon first, and 2 others who had accepted the offer to stay on the station. They've completed their probation period, Siwu explained. Community service, counseling, monitoring. They've done everything required and then some. I wanted you to be here when I told them they're free to stay on the station as permanent residents. The young separatist woman, her name was Kiva, looked at Nira with tears in her eyes. I'm sorry. For everything. For coming here with weapons. For believing the lies about traitors and degradation. I was so angry about the war that I couldn't see past it. I understand anger, Nira said gently. I felt it too, but anger is like poison. It hurts you more than anyone else. The workshops helped, Kiva admitted, learning alongside other species. Seeing that cooperation works, that we don't have to be isolated and bitter. She paused. I got a job offer. At a shipping company. They saw my repair certifications and didn't care that I was Kilar, or that I was with the separatists. They just cared that I could do the work. That's wonderful, Nira said, meaning it. After leaving security, Nira returned to the business center. The expanded facility was busy with activity. Technicians worked on various projects. Customers came and went. In one corner, Jiho was helping a nervous Trollian customer understand their repair options. In another, Taiho was training 2 new employees. Yuna found Nira near the main workbench. I have news. The big kind. Tell me. The Galactic Council wants to send a delegation here to observe the workshops and the business. They're considering making this model mandatory for all refugee programs across the galaxy. Yuna's eyes sparkled with excitement. You started this, Nira. You and Jiho. And now it might become standard practice everywhere. Nira felt overwhelmed. I didn't start anything. I just needed work. You needed work, and you found humans who believe in giving chances instead of closing doors. That combination changed everything. That evening, the core group gathered at Jiho's original shop, now the training center. Jiho, Hana, Nira, Taiho, Yuna, Hyun, and several of the first workshop students. They shared a meal, as had become their tradition every Saturday night. Borvik, the elderly Trollian merchant, raised his cup in a toast. To second chances, and to the humans who taught us that everyone deserves them. To Nira, Jiho countered, who reminded us why second chances matter. To all of us, Nira said, because none of this would exist without everyone here. They drank to that. Later, Nira walked through the station alone, taking in the familiar sights. She passed the Vexian shipping company that had rejected her, the Trollian restaurant owner who had called her war criminal, the businesses that wouldn't give her a chance. Some of those same businesses now employed workshop graduates. Change was slow, but it happened. One person at a time, one chance at a time, Nira's communicator chimed. It was Tola, the young Keswick woman from the workshop. I got a job. Tola's voice was filled with joy. One of the businesses from your list hired me. I start Monday. Congratulations, Nira said warmly. You earned it. No, you earned it. You built this. You showed us it was possible. After the call ended, Nira stood in the central plaza where she had sat months ago, hungry and hopeless. She remembered that desperate woman who had nothing left but one last attempt at Jiho's small shop. That woman had been ready to give up, to disappear into the lower levels and fade away. Instead, she found humans who saw past her species, past her people's mistakes, past the easy prejudices. They saw her potential, her value, her humanity, and in doing so they had started something that spread across the station, across multiple stations now, potentially across the entire galaxy, all because one human asked a hungry alien woman if she needed help. Nira returned to the training center. Tomorrow would bring more students, more refugees searching for hope, more people who needed to hear that their past didn't define their future, that one person's compassion could change everything. She entered the small storage room that had been her first real home on the station. She didn't sleep here anymore. She had her own apartment now, earned through honest work. But she kept the room as it had been, a reminder of where she started. On the shelf sat the bowl Hana had used to serve her that first meal. Nira picked it up, running her fingers over the simple ceramic. Such a small thing, such a huge impact. Outside, Valara Station continued its endless activity. Ships came and went. Aliens of countless species conducted business, lived their lives, pursued their dreams. The galaxy turned, indifferent and vast. But in one corner of that galaxy, on one station, in one small community, something had changed, something important. People had learned that compassion was stronger than prejudice, that giving chances created opportunities for everyone, that humans, barely 15 years into their galactic journey, understood something that older species had forgotten. Everyone deserves dignity. Everyone deserves a chance. Everyone matters. Nira set the bowl back on the shelf carefully. Tomorrow she would help run the workshops. She would mentor new students. She would continue building the community that had saved her life. But tonight she simply felt grateful. For Jiho's kindness, for Hana's acceptance, for Yuna's friendship, for Hyun's advocacy, for Taeho's growth, for every student who found hope, for every business that gave chances, for every person who chose compassion over fear. The desperate alien woman who had begged for work no longer existed. In her place stood someone new, someone stronger, someone who knew that the galaxy could be better because she had seen humans prove it was possible, and tomorrow, she would help others discover the same truth. The storage room was quiet and peaceful. Nira lay down on the cot, looking up at the ceiling of the small space that had been her sanctuary. She was home. She had purpose. She had family, not by blood but by choice. She had found something she thought was lost forever. She had found hope, and hope, as it turned out, was contagious. It spread from person to person, species to species, growing with each shared meal and each extended hand and each second chance given.